Hey guys, welcome to the Blue Collar Business Podcast, where we discuss the realest, rawest, most relevant stories and strategies behind building every corner of a blue collar business. I'm your host, Cy Kirby, and I want to help you. What it took me, trial and error, and a whole lot of money to learn. The information that no one in this industry is willing to share. Whether you're under that shade tree or have your hard hat on, let's expand your toolbox. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Business Podcast. I want to welcome you guys, number one, to our very first episode at podcastvideos.com here at their location in Pinnacle and Rogers, Arkansas. I am so enthralled to get into this episode. I met Mr. RJ Burr, president at Panex. He jumped on a mock podcast call with me. We kind of talked for about 10 minutes, and then it ran to about an hour, and I was taking notes as fast as I could write. So I am truly inspired by the story and the little bit I've learned up to this point, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. So furthermore, Mr. RJ, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no worries, man. This is awesome.
I've been really excited since we had our little talk last week, but I'm going to jump right into this, brother. We've got about an hour and a half worth of time here, and over the courses of what year did you start, sir?
Oh, golly, 1993 was my first year in the business.
I was born in 1991 for reference. Okay. So Give us from 1993. Give us as far as you want to, introduction of where you came from, who you are, and obviously bred in the blue collar system of oil and gas. Well, take it away, sir.
It's all my family's ever done. Oil and gas. My grandpa was an oil man back in the Wild West days of oil. Now my mom, her brother, she's one of the unique ones. She's a baby boomer. However, her brothers, the youngest one is 21 years older than her, and her oldest brother is 26 years older than her. So she essentially had three dads, and they were all in oil. My dad got into oil in 1973, 2 years before I was born. My cousins are in oil. It's all we do. I was 7 years old when my dad had me out on the location for the first time, to go to school with Dad Day. And I load up in the truck and we head out there. It's like 800 degrees in the middle of Texas. You stick your head out the window, it feels like your face is going to melt off. It's so hot. And we stopped in Luling, Texas. And there was this I was telling you, there's this odor in the air. And if anybody's ever been to Luling, you know what I'm talking about. There's a distinct aroma. And as a kid, it didn't smell good. Ooh, Dad, what's that? And he goes, baby, that's money. And it smells like oil. And when he took me to the actual location in the field and I saw those army of pump jacks, well, what's on the wall behind me? Little horse that goes up and down. When I was hooked. I knew what I wanted to do, and for better or worse, some kids and some adults spend decades trying to find their purpose. Well, I knew mine at 7. I graduated high school, made my first sale 3 months later, and haven't looked back. Now, one thing that's a little different in my earlier life in oil, we kind of jokingly called our first life and our second life in oil. I was more of a salesman who happened to be in oil, and I knew the business, but my first day in the office, I got a phone book, a script, and a phone, and said, have fun. And so I've been selling since day one. So to get into the intricacies of how to work the rigs, I never did that. Well, my brother's first day in the office wasn't in the office. I came to the office when my brother joined the workforce a couple of years later. He went straight to the field. And the reason we did that is we knew that to run an effective oil company, one guy cannot do everything. At that point in time, my dad wore every hat in the business. And don't get me wrong, he was very good at what he did. I mean, heck, Marathon Oil came in and bought our family company. He did something right. However, he was running nonstop. And so my brother and I said, well, let's split this up into two sides. One side is the fundraising and the operations side. If you can't fund your own deals, you're always at the mercy of somebody else who can. And so that's the area I focused on. Well, the other side of the business is the geological and production side. If you can't find oil and produce it economically, once again, you're always at the mercy of somebody else who can. And so that's how we spent our first 20 years in our life. And then here's about, 13 some odd years ago, Marathon Oil came in, bought our family company. That's a whole nother long story, but I'll just say that we were partnered with them on some deals that we finally had to turn them down, and they godfathered us. They came in and just made us an offer we couldn't refuse and bought the whole company. And so here I'm in my early 30s, thinking I'm going to play on the PGA Tour. It took me about 2 months to realize that wasn't going to happen. And it took me another year or so to finally go stir crazy. And here about 8 years ago, we cranked back up. Went and had dinner with my dad and brothers. The guys, I'm going stir crazy. It's time to get back to work. I love oil. I love making my partners money. I love making money. I'm going BS crazy. And they were sitting in the same boat, thank God. And that was when we started Panex. Now, this might not be politically correct, but one thing that most people didn't understand when we cranked back up, and I don't know the proper way to say this, but the guys in my office, there might be at any one time 6 people in the office. Well, all 6 of those people cut their teeth in oil in the most ruthless cutthroat stage. I mean, the end of the J.R. Ewing era of oil is when we learned oil. And so when I started looking at, let's just say a certain mental aptitude that is kind of spread through the workforce in the participation trophy era, I knew they'd have no idea how to deal with us. We'd be too aggressive because, look, don't get me wrong, I want to be friends with everybody, but that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to win for my partners, period. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's the only thing I'm answerable to is how do my partners feel about what we're doing? If you're on the outside and you have an opinion, that's your opinion. And everybody has an opinion. Some of them stink. Well, you don't listen to them. And so that's how we base our business. Well, since that time, we've placed 32 of the last 35 partnership wells into production. The last 5 partnerships, the partners will average bottom side, I'd say anywhere from, now this is if everything stays on projections. I mean, the world could open up and swallow everything we're doing. I'm not, you can't, nobody can guarantee you anything, especially in oil and gas.
Averages that you've seen, though.
Yeah, if they say the G word, they're lying to you. But that's not even a word I use. But if our projections stay on course like they have been, I'd say bottom side, the partners will make about 3-4 to 1 after taxes on their money. Top side, they'll make 8-10 to 1. And that's it. That's based on $80 oil. Wow. I mean, we have one well that we placed into production here about 3 months ago. This well's averaging over 100 barrels a day. Good solid well. 100 barrels a day, keep the doctor away every day. Well, this well is producing that 100 barrels a day from the deepest zone. When you produce, you start at the bottom and work your way up. It's much more difficult to go back down once you produced in the middle to go back down. So you start at the bottom and work your way up. Well, this zone and this well just happens to be the deepest zone. It's not the best zone. The best zone's 2 zones up. Well, it's going to take us another 10, 15 years to get to that zone. The partners will make all the money on those lower zones. Well, what do you think oil prices are going to be 15 years from now when we hit that zone? Well, now they have a whole nother flush production come in from it's basically a brand new well. And so as long as you're getting involved with the right people, I mean, I truly believe if you're an accredited investor and you don't have money, at least, I'm not saying put your entire portfolio in oil, but if you don't have some of your money in oil, you're missing a tremendous shot. Now, the key is, who do you get involved with? There are so many fly-by-night companies who, look, it is such a lucrative industry that anything that has this much money is going to bring rats. And so you have to kick the tires. You have to make sure you're dealing with people that, hadn't won every time. Good God, if anybody tells you they've won every time in oil, they're either the luckiest person alive or they're lying, because this is oil. Only the good Lord above knows exactly what you're getting when you go down there. And so what you have to do is you set a standard, a set of principles that you adhere to, and you stick with them every time. Ours, the first question we ask on any partnership, is it good for the partners? Doesn't matter how good it is for us. Is it good for the partners? Because if that answer is no, we don't do it. Now, once we get a yes on that, well, then we move to the next step. And let's say we have a partnership that doesn't work out. Is there anything we can do to help that partnership out? Not to get you to invest again. I don't care if you put any more money with me. morally, if I'm in a position where I can help a partnership out, I'm going to help it out. Now, if
Of course.
I can't, I'm not. But I'm going to let you know where we're at every step of the way. That way you don't guess on where your money is. That way you don't guess on what it's being spent on. We want you, this is your money we're talking about. Now, I tell everybody, I don't care if it's the little hair on your pinky or the little hair on your pinky toe. If it has a question and you don't ask it, shame on you. That's what I'm here for. I want to make sure everything is answered. And that's pretty much what we did. We go out and we put our partners in productive areas. And, I'd love to say our strategy is more complicated, but it's not. We go into proven areas and get what others left behind. It's about as simple as that.
That's an insightful intro, brother. I mean, from 1993 till now, to hear a little bit about what you guys are doing on the day-to-day right now is mind-boggling for me, honestly. But honestly, of course, it's happening, and who do you trust? But how have you seen, my first question for you, brother, I know you mentioned you were more on the ops side. You were definitely more on the admin side of things. That's probably involved with anything from estimating to where you drill, et cetera. I don't know as much. I'd like to hear a little bit about that. But what do you see the importance, not just oil and gas, but the blue collar man and woman in the workforce moving forward? You mentioned a little bit there about the new age and the new era of generation that we've got coming. My belief is, in the modern America, we've got younger owners like myself trying to adapt to retain them and turn them into, producers.
Well, the modern blue collar worker, that's where most of your improvements are going to come. When you look at, we won't even go off the tangent on climate change. However, let's say you buy into it. When you look at the CO2 reductions that have happened over the last 10, 15 years, do you know where the vast majority of those have come from? Oil companies figuring out how to burn their oil cleaner. Not from solar, not from wind, it's because the world, and I was telling you earlier, I'm writing that speech and I'm giving here in a couple months, and I just want to, I lay everything out to make sure, my mind works when I write it down, it's when I remember it, and yes. I want it. And so if you come to my desk, chances are you're going to see a pen and a stack of papers.
Yes, sir. I'm scratch paper. I'm going to ask everybody if they're a list or a scratch paper person. In business, I find all the way up at the top, we still do it from day one till now.
Well, I mean, I sit down and I everything I write like I'm speaking. And, I might not be the most, punctuation accurate English writer. However, when I read it out loud, if it reads right, it's right. And I've got nothing but A's in English. I couldn't tell you where a comma is supposed to go other than I think it needs to go. It feels like it needs to go there. And you're right. But so I'll sit down and write it. And part of the thing that I was saying is, okay, everybody's heard a lot of the stuff on oil. Everybody's heard that, we use oil, but truly most people don't understand the role that oil plays in their life. And they don't understand the catastrophic consequences of removing oil from your life. And you just, it's like you have a family member, somebody you love dearly, that they're sick. They're sick, and if they don't do anything about it, they're going to die. However, they refuse to go to the doctor. And the doctor has the cure. What would you do to get them there? Well, right now, you have a large segment of our population that is that sick patient that just doesn't realize that, I'm sorry, solar panels aren't going to do it. Wind turbines aren't going to do it. If you want to continue living the modern life you live, if you want to continue having the comforts that modern life provides, it has to come from energy. It has to come from oil. It has to come from gas. We don't have anything to replace it with. And what we do have to replace it with evidently doesn't fit your criteria because it'd be nuclear or natural gas even more. And so you look at it, and we won't get into them, to go their route. We'd have to destroy the world before we fixed it. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. But so there's so many things that you could look at. Now, when you talk blue collar, I think more service industry. I look at it as, talking with my kids. I wouldn't let my kids come work for me right off the bat. I wanted them to get in the real world and realize what real work is before you come with dad, because I'm still a type A, and I'm still I might not be in my ball playing age, but I'm in my mental prime.
That's right.
And so we're going to butt heads if you're not ready. And so I want to make sure they're ready before they come in here. And so we're talking about business. We're talking about making a living. We're talking about life. And I said, Dad, what would be the top 3 things you'd tell us when it comes to what we need to do? I said, well, number 1, work hard. Number 2, work harder. Number 3, be the hardest working person out there. So those are the 3 things you need. If the talent's there, everything else will take care of itself. But that you have a whole generation that doesn't realize that they think everything comes on a, and I'm not point fingers. I'm the same way as a kid. Heck, as long as my Star Wars action figures and my G.I. Joe were there and not chewed up by a dog, I didn't care that they were made from a wall.
That's right.
And that's how most, however, I'll think of it this way. I was talking to Nigel Farage at CPAC, and I think you and I discussed this last time. And we were discussing energy. And I said, it just doesn't make sense. Unless you're trying to destroy us, nothing they're saying is making sense. And nothing they're doing is making sense. And he looks at me and he says, look, you cannot manage abundance. You can control scarcity.
Man, that's good.
And think about that. Well, if you were making the decisions that are being made and you were trying to make America energy independent, what decisions would you make? Okay. Well, if I was making decisions for America and I wanted to get Americans in a position where I could control it all, what decisions would you make? Well, what lane does what we're doing right now fall into? I'm not a rocket scientist, but I do know if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and swims like a duck, got a pretty good chance it's a duck.
I like shooting those ducks.
Oh, they taste good, don't they?
Yeah, every once in a while. Depends who cooks them.
Yeah.
But now I love how you've gone into modern. I'm sitting here, you've opened my eyes, honestly, just sitting here talking to you, thinking about, G.I. Joe and all the way down to that. Give us kind of the evolution of oil. Give us some education, maybe just me. I know the audience, we do more utility and earthwork, and I've had some oil and gas guys on, but more from a recruiting standpoint and background. I would love to hear from no better person than yourself, the evolution of the oil and maybe some things that your dad may have dealt with. I mean, it sounds like he's an incredible man obviously you guys supported him to get there, but to sell out to Marathon, I mean, the family business is something to speak of. Give us that evolution and the ups and downs.
I'm one of those guys that in my life, I've been shaped by pretty much 3 men. 3 men shaped who I am. Jesus, my dad, and Rush Limbaugh. And I'm one of the I am one of those Rush babies. I started listening to him when I was 16 years old. And I'm not saying I agreed with everything he said. However, I respected him because he had to be right. If he was wrong, they would crucify him. And so when he made a statement, he better be able to back that statement up ironclad. Otherwise, hell, he had every media figure on the planet after him. You with me? And so that was the fact that he unapologetically stated it. That was why I listened to him. Plus, he was entertaining. He made me laugh every day. However, one of the lessons I learned from him is that it's easy to be negative. Some would even say cowardly. Anybody can wake up in the morning and find something to complain about. That's easy. It takes courage to be positive. It takes courage to get up every morning and find something to be positive about. And when I learned that lesson, it really changed how I do business and what I do. At that point, now I wanted to be a servant to help people see what I see. Because, look at oil and gas. Here, you have a product that has changed the world. In 1859, when the first well was drilled in Titusville, PA, when we put that well into production, the entire world changed. Now you had mobility. Now you had energy. Now you had products. Now you had medical products. Now you had everything as they were figuring out how to use, oh my God, this wonder product. You had the world just change in so many ways. Well, here you have a product that has changed the world, and as the modern world was built on oil for more than 100 years now, yet it's been under attack for half that time. Here you have a product that has created more upward mobility for humans than any product we've ever used, yet it's demonized. Here we have a product that has moved more people out of poverty and has created more wealth than anything in human history, yet it's under assault. And so, standing as an oil guy, I could get up every morning and complain about that and get mad about it. I choose not to. I choose to look at oil. I don't hear the chatter because I know what oil does. Oil changed the world. Oil's not going anywhere. 83% of the world is just now beginning to use oil. What do you think? They're going to skip straight from oil to fusion? No, somebody's got to create it first. So oil's not going anywhere. Here we have a product that has literally taken us from the Stone Age to the modern world. I'm going to celebrate it. You look at America, same thing. I truly believe it's all in makeup. I think it's on purpose. I really do, because just look at the news. Flip on the news any night, and it's going to be negative. It's going to be, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Well, look at our country. We are without a doubt the greatest country that has ever been. We have done more good for the world than any group of people in the history of humanity. I mean, we're morally good people. We want the best. We're giving people. We're caring. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a few crazies in there. You can't have, there's only one perfect person and we hung him on the cross.
That's right.
But in general, I would say, like Republican, Democrat, I don't even look at it, because I truly believe if you just set up a questionnaire, remove Democrat, remove Republican, and just ask questions about standard American, who we are. Do you believe you know better for your family or the government? Would you help somebody if they needed help if you could? Would you ask for help? Do you want an equal law? If you just ask 90% of us would agree the same thing. Mm-hmm. However, 100%. Here's where I take it. Here I'm a little different than some. I believe that could be said for every country throughout the world. If you just grab every citizen, they don't want to fight. No. Why don't I want to go to war with them? I don't want to kill them. What they do to me? Well, I want 5 wives. Okay, go live with your 5 wives. That doesn't affect me.
Nope.
If y'all are good with it, I'm good with it. But I think if you have, it's the crazy head that leads a snake in the wrong spot, and that's what we've had for years. I don't, and I don't want to get conspiracy wise, but it's just one that I truly believe people are good. And when I look at our country, it makes me angry to hear people talk bad about us. Have we made mistakes? Yeah, we have. Have we tried to fix them? Yes, in every instance. I mean, look at illegal immigration. Most people, I guess, have just conveniently forgot that if we were the same as every country in the history of man, Mexico would already be part of America. We beat them before the Civil War. Everybody seems to forget that chapter in history, the Mexican-American War. We occupied Mexico City. That's not up near Tijuana. That's down there. We occupied the entire country, and we gave it back. If we had been like every other country, they'd already be American. However, they wouldn't be living in the slums they live in because they would have our laws guiding them. However, we gave them their country. Well, people seem to forget about that. People seem to forget about the hundreds of thousands of people that died in the Civil War. The hundreds of thousands, World War I, World War II. What? Name another country that people still die trying to get to. Even as messed up as we are today, people are still dying trying to get here. So I don't believe their story. And another lesson that Rush taught me, don't believe the premise of the question. You look at the fact, Here, I see somebody living in New York on TV, on Fox News, big dress, nice clothes, and talking about how they've been oppressed. Kiss my butt. Really? You've been oppressed? Come on. You're sitting on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Name any one of them. How is that oppressed? You're actually, I don't agree with anything you're saying. But you know what? I'd die for your right to say it.
That's right.
You know,
yeah.
And people have conveniently, we've conveniently decided that it's too hard to learn history. And, you know, and if you forget where you came from, you're gonna forget who you are.
No, 100%, brother, 100%. And a couple of things you mentioned there, the influences of, hey, I don't care who it is. We always have brought up on every single episode prior those influences that we've had, and it always drives the mindset, etc. And it's funny you mentioned, you know, how re-gearing your mindset changed everything. And that's exactly what I had to do for myself. I was negative. I was thinking differently. Thank God I got in better with the Lord and started walking a little bit differently, and that definitely helped my mindset as well. But
there's nothing too big for him to handle.
That's right, brother. And I don't know how people run businesses without him, because I tried and it was terrible. So I want you to mention, definitely give us some strategies. You've obviously been a very successful man. You've had been a part of family business. Now you're on your own ventures with your brother, and you're taking care of however many people. Can you give us some strategies, not just in the oil realm, but in the blue collar realm as well, for, say, an HVAC guy out there, or maybe that plumber, or maybe that guy's that's today he's just jumping off and doing his own thing next week? Like, could give them a little bit of encouragement from all the way on the other side, including myself. You know what I mean?
If I was starting over and I didn't have oil, I would own the service industries. I'd own them, because all it takes is looking at history. All it takes is reading and watching a society. And most people remember back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, remember the customer was always right? Well, that was how business was built around. The customer was always right. You bend over backwards for the customer. You don't know when you're going to get another one. And so you bend up. Well, then all of a sudden, guess what? The customer took advantage of that. And so from the 60s, 70s through 80s, the customer starts taking advantage of that. Well, all of a sudden the owner starts saying, well, hang on, maybe the customer is not always right. Well, now you keep following it through. Now we're at the point, how many times have you gone into a store and you felt like you were begging them to do business with them?
That's right.
So now it's become a no customer world where the customer is begging me. Well, that's a complete diametrically opposed to what it was years ago. And so here's what I would do. Doesn't matter what business you're in. Carpentry, landscaping, roofing, plumbing, framing. Doesn't matter. HVAC, once again, I don't care. If you're young, vocational school to learn how to do it, if that's one route, or get a job with a successful group in town. You're not going to make a lot of money. You're going to be on the bottom of the rung, but you know what? If you get on with a successful group, you can look and learn why are they successful? Once you've done it for a couple of years, you start on your own and you open your own shop. Because look, I hate to say this to people, and having a job with somebody, hey, that's awesome. I'm not diminishing working for somebody else. However, in my mind, as long as I'm working for somebody else, there's a ceiling on how much money I can make. And so that's why I say you got to be your own business owner. You got to do it yourself, because it is the riskiest. It is the scariest. However, it's yours. You can build it. You can do it. You want to crash it, you can crash it. You want to build it to the top of Mount Everest, you can build it to the top of Mount Everest. But what I do is I learn my profession, whichever one it is, I become a master of it. Then I start my own business. When I start my own business, I make sure customer service is the first thing I address. My clients will love me. Why? Because I go above and beyond. Now, the second side of this, how many times have you gone in? Because for me, it's been damn near every time. And somebody's trying to hit a grand slam on you. You know, that's how it feels every time you do business. Well, in my new business, what's wrong with hitting singles? Don't do it for free. You got to make a little money. You're not there for charity. You're not altruistic. However, you don't step on them. You make a good amount of money where they feel good about paying it. You've made money, and then you back it up with customer service. If Mrs. Johnson calls you a year later and says something's going on, you get your butt over there and fix it and don't charge her a thing for it.
That's right.
Do you know what you've done? Mrs. Johnson will be a client of yours for the rest of her life. Mrs. Johnson will tell everybody at her bridge club about you. You will now become their contract, whatever. Well, if you have 10 circles of influence doing that for you, all of a sudden you have 100 customers. Next thing you know, you're 30 years old and you have 10 guys working for you. You're no longer the guy having to crawl up in that ductwork. Now your guys are doing all that. But you made sure that you took care of your customer. Now, mind-wise, if you take care of your customer so much, they'll pay you more for it.
100%, brother.
It's not rocket science. All you have to do is look at how Tom's Plumbing made it in the 50s. That's exactly how Tom's Plumbing made it in the 50s. History repeats itself. Just do it again. Become a servant to your customers, and your customers will take care of you.
I've got to say, brother, I built Psych on that. I did so many resi calls, residential topsoil and yards, fixing this, doing that. And if they felt I did some wrong, and what I have found in business, you're always going to be wrong. Just go out there and do your absolute due diligence. And it's all about integrity. Make sure you have absolutely done everything that you possibly can. And if it's still not enough, there are those people out there, but just make sure you've got yourself prepared. But 100%, I think craftsmanship, you've got to be a craftsman at your trade, whatever you're doing. Then your leadership has got to be another point. And then, not last but not least, you've got to be a businessman. And those three key points together make a successful businessman. I've seen guys, though, and I have been this in myself. I'm really good at my craft, and most guys that make it past that 5-year mark are, but maybe a crappy businessman and maybe a good leader, but maybe being too good of a leader is causing him to be a bad businessman. And, those guys, myself included, it's hard to find a good structure and balance between all three once you do have those 10 and 12 guys working for you. And how did you, this is a little off of where I was going, but how, from you going into the office and learning, you knew a little bit about the world, obviously, from being around Dad, but how did you attack that? What was your main things that you dealt with in the office? I know you dealt with some craziness. Was it recruiting? Was it estimating? Was it all of it?
Yeah. I mean, I was a sponge when I first started in the business. And yes, I was in a position that most of the young guys that started the business weren't, meaning I could go sit in the president's office and listen to them have a big meeting.
That's right.
And that's what I did. I kept my mouth shut. I was a fly on the wall, and I listened to everything, and I absorbed it. And you don't learn from a 70-0 win. You learn from a 14-10 loss. And so that's what you watch. The true mark of a salesman. That's, the number one thing I did when I recruit young salesmen. The true mark of a salesman is not being able to sell when things are going good. That's easy. When things are going good, you're rolling. The mark of a salesman, you called Mr. Johnson, you just lost $100,000 of his money. Can you sell him on the next deal? That's the mark of a salesman. Now, it's my job as the oil company. Now, I don't have any salesmen. I'm doing the salesman. And so it's my job to supply me with product that'll win for my partners. I mean, it's that simple. Because I'm the first one that has to be sold. If I don't believe a partnership is going to work, there's no way I can sell it to my partners. I just can't do it. And so I have to be the first one that buys in. And once I buy in, then man, once I'm sold on it, because we have more money than anybody else invested in any deal we do. And so, but now for people that just want general information, our website is panex.us/learn. We put that website together specifically for individuals who've never looked at oil before. It has our Morning Without Oil video, just kind of a little spoof video we did a couple of years ago. It was right before Christmas. I was up in the office about 6 a.m. one morning. I was just kind of laying out the end of the year and making a cup of coffee, and I'm just kind of looking around the kitchen. Now, I've been doing this 30 years at this point. This is the first time I've ever done this. I'm sitting there letting it brew, and I'm looking around, and it just kind of hit me. Well, that's made from oil. That's made from oil. That's made from oil. That. And I went all the way around the kitchen, like, holy crap. I didn't realize there were that many products made from oil. And so it kind of spurred a little inspiration. And we put a video together called A Morning Without Oil, where we take a modern couple. They wake up in the morning in their modern bed, alarm clock and all that. And I'm kind of narrating over the top. And I said, whoa, hang on, we're doing A Morning Without Oil couple. And so they rewind, and we remove everything from that room that was made from oil. And we follow them from getting up in the morning to going to the bathroom, to going in their kitchen. And then the last is the husband leaving for work and riding out on a donkey because and so we just kind of laid out, look, understand most people take for granted without oil, there's no plastic pipes. Without oil, there's no makeup. Without oil, there's no toothpaste. Without oil, there's no shampoo in your shower. Without oil, there's no toilet. Without oil, there's no refrigerator. There's no microwave. There's no stove. There's no, come on, guys. I mean, horsepower, okay, there's no car. There's your donkey. You know, that's what.
Wow.
It's what you have that video on there. I mean, we have Oil and Gas 101 that basically just gives you a basic outline of oil, how we drill, what we're looking for, what your products are in oil, just kind of give you a full sum. We have Oil and Gas 102 that shows you the tax benefits. Uncle Sam, now I'm not a CPA. I can just kind of give you a general rule of thumb. Uncle Sam roughly covers a third of every investment you put if you're drilling in the ground. You put 100,000 in, he's roughly going to let you write off 35,000. So,
wow, valuable information.
Yeah, it's above line deduction. It simply means if you make $500,000 a year and you put 100,000 in an oil deal, he'll look at it like you make 410,000 that year. Cash on cash. If at the end of the year, if you owe Uncle Sam 150,000 in taxes, you put 100,000 in a drilling program, you'll now owe him roughly 115,000 in taxes. And so, no, it's one of the best tax benefits out there. Now, it's not the reason to do oil. I remember I was in a presentation many, many years ago, and I actually do think it was Mr. Johnson, but I said it Mr. Johnson along it. It might not have been, but I said, Mr. Johnson, you write the whole thing off. He said, boy, if I wanted tax benefits, I'd give my money to the Boy Scouts. I'm investing in oil to make money. And so that just kind of stuck with me. It's not the reason to do it. However, if I don't point out that benefit, you're essentially playing on 65-cent dollars. It puts you in a pretty good
but that could be a huge player for somebody,
God.
Other side that has had a major exit on something and is looking for somewhere. Because like myself, brother, I have learned more off of the oil and gas conversations. Don't get me wrong. I've mentioned, I've got an uncle in the fracking side, and I've definitely, peeked into his brain a little bit, but man, I've learned so much about just the oil and gas. And talk about a little bit about the work life within what a blue collar man. Are you guys subcontracting most of your stuff out, or where are you guys in that oil and gas game? And excuse my ignorance.
No, we're in the upstream game. We drill our own wells. We contract with some drilling companies. They have their hands that are out on the rigs. In the oil business, man, they're out there as long as we're working. They're out there. We'll typically go on a 3-well basis. They'll come out and they'll knock 3 wells out, which will probably be probably 3 months just to be safe. Typically a month per well. And
wow,
at that point, we'll shut down and they'll go home. We are a little different. We don't have a local crew. Our holdings are in Baton Rouge, and
go Tigers.
Yeah, we have a crew that we brought from Texas to drill the wells. They've just been drilling for us for a long time, and it goes into you were talking about earlier about melding all the things a business owner has to do, from the leadership to the balancing and all that. And that goes back to one of the books I read a long time ago, Think and Grow Rich. It taught me that while it's important to know what you know, It's more important to know what you don't know.
That's right.
And hire somebody who does. And so that's really when we look at our crew and our people, they are the most important people in the business because they're the ones that create the magic. They're the ones that drill the wells. And I was actually talking to my brother this morning. I said, Bo, now his name's Justin, but I've been calling him Bo since he was 10. And I said, Bo, I don't know if you realize what our guys have done. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, babe, I've never heard of anybody drilling salt dome wells like we're doing it. We have completely reinvented how you do it. Now, maybe somebody else is doing it. I just don't know about it. But typically, and there's a reason we love salt domes. There's two reasons. One, they were your original oil-bearing formations. Back in the Wild West days of oil, salt domes were the first structures geologists could identify. Your spindle tops, a lot of your old oil fields, that's when they were discovered, your old salt domes. Well, those old oil companies are about like spoiled kids, and that their favorite toy is their next toy. So they'd hit one of these wells on these salt domes. They'd, over the next handful of years, they'd drill 5, 10, 15 wells around it. They're all cutting backflips. They made all this oil. Well, at that point, remember, it's 1925, 1930, 1940. They didn't really know what all they had in the ground. All of a sudden, they hit something a couple of miles away. They just pick up location and move everything over there. Well, how much oil did they leave behind? There are over 600 salt domes across the Gulf Coast. Some of them have no oil in it. Some of them have been completely depleted. Some of them have been fully developed how they're supposed to. However, there's a lot of them just like the Choctaw Salt Dome is the one we own. That's the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The salt dome under us is the one you're on the news all the time. We're developing all the land around it. Well, our field was originally discovered in 1926. Between 1926 and roughly the mid-'80s, they drilled over 200 wells on this field. Well, all of that data that they created is public data if you know where to look. And if you have the legwork and you're willing to go out and dig all this information out, when you ran a log on a well, when you finish drilling a well, you have your open hole, you run a little tool in there and you log the well. It tells you what you have in the well. Well, if you ran a log in 1940 and you run a log in 2024, you're generating essentially the same information. Now, our logs look much better because of the computers and the printers we use. However, the data is very similar. So we can take a well, prime example, looking at our field. We were the first ones, we gathered 40,000 different data sets on this field. We digitized them all and basically stacked them on top of our geology. Well, in going through this data, we'd see a big, beautiful log. And the reason you do this, you're building your profile on the field. You're seeing what the average wells do, what you can look for, because closeology is the best geology you can get. Get as close as you can to a producer and drill another one. And so you look at all this and...
I like that. Closeology is the best geology.
Yeah. Well, heck, it should be there. And
that's a good one, brother.
And so you go through all these logs and you look at it and say, okay, the profile we built, these wells on this field should have anywhere from 3 to 10 different pay sands on it. They'll be long life wells. They'll produce anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million barrels of oil on average. That was the profile we built. Well, then all of a sudden we'd see a log, beautiful pay sands, multiple stacked pay sands, but we look at the production like, it only produced 50,000 barrels. This well should have 500,000 to 1.5 million barrels in it. Why did it produce 50,000? So you kind of scratch your head and you keep on going. Then all of a sudden you see another one. Just like that, beautiful stacked pay sands with a little production. And you see another one. And you see another one. And you see another one. When it was done, we had a couple of dozen of these that were beautiful logs. Well, should have produced 500,000 to 1 million barrels, but they had just a little bit of production. Well, once we did the research on it, we figured out why. There were 2 reasons. 1, sand. 2, gluttony. When these guys drilled the wells, they were competing with other people on the field. They wanted to be the big dog out there. So when they hit these wells, they turned them wide open. Well, these wells produce sand also. Think about it this way. If you had a big gulp with crushed ice in it, you didn't have a top or a straw, and you wanted to drink that Coke and not get any of that crushed ice in your mouth, you'd have to get your lip to it and block it with your teeth, your lip, and slowly sip on that Coke so you didn't get the ice in your mouth. Well, That's how you have to produce these wells. What these guys did was just basically open their mouth and pour the Coke in. Well, you have initial production. It's kicking out a lot of oil. They opened it wide open. it's producing a lot. Well, if it's producing a lot of oil, it's producing a lot of sand also. Next thing you know, they look up and they've turned a beautiful prospect into a 5,000-foot column of cement. And they walk away. And so we look at it like, I'm talking to my geologist. And I said, Bruce, man, I got to figure out a story to tell that because that's too long for me to explain that. I said, what about this? We essentially have a treasure map. And not only do we have a treasure map, we have a treasure map with several dozen X's on those treasure maps that show us where the treasure's at. Not only do we have the X's that show us where it's at, somebody's actually gone down and dug one of those nuggets of gold out of that treasure and brought it back up to the surface and set it on top to show us the gold's there. I said, so all we're doing is going drilling next to that X, right? He said, yeah, basically. And that's what we've been doing. We've now, in the last 3 years, we've drilled off of those logs. Like right now, we're about to drill one off of 3 logs. 2 of them were from 1942 and 1946, and one of them was from 1951. And we're going right smack dab in between them. All 3 of them had beautiful pay sands from the same depth. Well, heck, if it was there 80 years ago, if it was there 70 years ago, it should still be there. That's the blink of an eye when it comes to geological time. So all we're doing is going down. Now, to date, we've drilled off of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those logs. We've hit all 6 of them. In the last 3 years on this field alone, we've placed 10 of the 11 partnership wells in production. And so It's just, we're not testing the theory anymore. Now, does that mean we're going to hit every well we drill? No, we'll have some mechanical. The second reason we love salt domes is it's difficult drilling. It's hard to drill these wells. And so it scares away. Most oil companies want nothing to do with it. Well, that's why our crew is so important to us. We embrace these difficult wells because we know what we're doing. That doesn't mean, like I said, that doesn't mean we're going to win every time. However, when you're dealing with a group that knows how to do it and has a track record like we have, I believe we've got a lot better shot than most to get it done.
And you've hinted around about in your mock podcast, and I just, before I go into that point, it's just so funny how closely, you're talking about wins and sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. I wish that I could relate a little bit. I can, in the sense of we go out, we smack through some utilities, we cut dirt, cut and fill runs awesome, but then something is a big holdup and something's a big money eater on it. Mm-hmm. And I wish there was a way I can just chalk it up as closeology is the best geology. But that was really cool. So you've hinted around a couple of times. I think you've definitely got some folks interested at this point with, number one, your knowledge of the oil and gas industry, but the profitability of it at an investor standpoint. You hinted around about American independent oil producers. And if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 84% of the market?
Roughly, yeah. Roughly.
Okay. So roughly around 8. That's crazy to me because in my local game, the market is way different, obviously. But hint around about the profit potential and what are the investments. So, there is a couple of buddies that, they trust each other and they want to diversify their portfolio. They had a little bit of luck, whatever the game may be or the result may have been. Give us a little insight on that and maybe a strategy for some of these guys that are, not quite there, but want to get up here. And this may be their investment opportunity. Give them a little bit of a strategy and insight of getting there.
Well, the first thing I will tell anybody is that oil and gas by nature is speculative. If anybody ever tells you different, they're lying to you. And oil and gas is something that, let's just say $100,000. Let's say you put $100,000 in the deal. Well, if the world opened up and swallowed my company, and other than your tax benefits, I lost every dime of that $100,000. If that event right there would change the clothes you wear, the car you drive, or the food you eat, then oil is not for you. This is a game. This is basically your discretionary funds. And how I explain it to my partners is my partners live, I call it the 3 S's. They live out of 3 piles of money. Okay. The first pile is their sacred money. That's the money they pay their bills with. They take care of their family. That's the pile they live from. Nobody touches that pile of money. The second pile of money is their safe money. That's the money they put in real estate. That's the money they put in gold, silver. They put their money there knowing that, yes, they want to make a little money. However, it's more important they want to know that when they come back to it, just as much is going to be there as when they put it there to begin with. They want it to grow, but they're okay if it doesn't. They just want to know it's there. Their third pile is their speculation pile. That's the pile they play with me on. That's the pile they want to make multiples on their money. They want to make 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 5 to 1, 10 to 1. That's the money they put in oil and gas. Now, the big realization that a lot of my partners are coming under the last couple of years is the fact that a lot of the investments that they were putting in their safe pile were not so safe. Mm-hmm. You know, you look at the silver crunch from 2 years ago when everybody realized, oh my God, there's more silver certificates than there actually is silver. And so all of a sudden, the piles that they thought were sacred were no longer protected like they thought. And they were just as manipulated as everything else. And so it caused a kind of a little turmoil within our group. Well, then I was sitting down because if my partners have an issue, I have an issue. And so it was on my head, and it hit me about 3 a.m. one night. I popped up in bed, scared my wife. My dog almost bit me. And I jumped out and ran to the office, and I started running numbers. And it hit me. I was like, look, if you're tired of this rat race, if you're tired of the craziness, because it is right now to look at the Dow and see that the Dow is sitting at 40,000 after everything that's going on economically, how? You know, what stocks did you pick? You know, so you look at where are you going to put your money? You know, what are you going to back it in? And I finally hit it. Well, what's the one product that everybody has to have? What's the one product that has a fair price because half the people want it free, the other half the people want it $1 million a barrel? And what's the one product that's not going anywhere? It has long legs. It's oil. Mm. So if you're going to back your money in something, back it in oil. Now, what our strategy is in every partnership we put together, our goal is to have one of the wells be a direct offset to one of the wells that we drilled. Where, like a prime example, the Blackstone number 4 was the first well we drilled on a particular fault block. Once we hit the Blackstone number 4, every well I drilled around that is one of our wells because we're offsetting a well that we drilled. Well, the Blackstone number 5 just happened to be in the same partnership as the Blackstone number 4. The Blackstone number 6 was with a different partnership. The Blackstone number 7 was with a different partnership over here. And so every partnership we drill, we want to be offsetting a well that we were already successful in. That's our safety factor because now we've proven the oil's there with our work. Well, the other wells will be directly offsetting the logged wells that I was telling you about. The wells where we have 2 logs, prime example, our Wilbert number 8. This well is producing 150 barrels a day right now. We had 2 wells, one from 1946 that showed, it was about 100-foot thick pay sand. It was the number 6 sand. It showed, I mean, you could see it beautifully. It's right there on the log. Well, on the other side of the fault, a well was drilled in 1952 that showed the exact same log. So, I mean, the exact same sand package. Both of these wells sanded out after about 1.5 years of production. So what we do? We went right smack dab in between them. And guess what we got? We got a single pay sand that was over 100 feet thick. This single pay, that sand by itself should produce for the next 15 years. And right now it's producing 150 barrels a day. On my partner's money at $80 oil, that's about 40% annually after taxes that they'll make on that one well in their partnership. And so it's just, you know, now,
wow.
And that's typically every 100 barrels a well produces. And that's, once again, that's just based on the numbers of our last couple partnerships. Every 100 barrels a well produces at $80 spot price will generate the partners right at 25% annually after taxes.
Wow. And that's safe. That you feel safe about that number?
Yeah. I mean, that's now if oil prices change, then it's all a calculation. But when it comes to the production, I'd say our smaller wells will average 25 to 50 barrels a day. Our larger wells will average 100 to 150 barrels a day. Now, what's going to happen is and it's proof I mean, you look at the wells around the field. There are multiple wells in this field that came in producing 400 or 500 barrels a day. We'll get a couple of those. When are we going to get them? I don't know. What zone will it be that we get it in? I don't know. but we'll get a couple of those. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that our partners' wells go through pay sands. Now, do those pay sands have oil in them? They should. They should. Now, have they all had oil in them so far? Yes. I'm going to knock on wood because I don't want to jinx myself, but you just kind of, you go let the geology tell you where to drill the well. I mean, our geologists, that's why you get a geologist that specializes in this area. I don't want to take a geologist from East Texas and bring him to Baton Rouge.
No,
I wouldn't take a geologist from Baton Rouge and take him to East Texas. And so you get somebody who knows that rock. And all that, it's really a lot like all the oil industry is a lot like Janet Jackson and What Have You Done For Me Lately? And so your relationship with your geologist is the same thing. And when we first hooked up with Bruce, we looked at his stellar track record. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. I mean, we looked at everything he's done and we were thrilled about it. However, we had never drilled a well with him. Well, now we've been drilling wells with him for 3 years, and this cat's hit every zone he said he was going to hit. After one time, might be lucky. After 2 times, might be a coincidence. 3 times, okay, maybe you're good at it. 4 times, no, dude, you're good at it. 10 times,
wow.
Now,
wow.
The one well we missed, we actually got 2 thief zones, and that's basically they take all your drilling mud. You can't, once you get, it's a void, it's a cavern that we ran into that basically all your circulation, you lose your circulation. Well, your drill bit's going to burn up. You can't drill without circulation. And so we pumped it up and tried to fill the cavern up, and we never could. We ended up spending, I think we ended up eating as a company. We took it out of a partnership. We wouldn't let the partnership have that well. We ate it as a company. I think we ended up eating over $1 billion on that well. But that was, now we drilled wells where we came in from, we've been aiming to come back to that well. That was the number 2 well Bruce wanted to drill out here. Well, now we have a game plan to avoid that cavern altogether, and we'll come from outside of the dome towards the dome and down. I mean, that's getting into the weeds, but that's what having your crew. I mean, there's I'm a baseball snob, but there's a reason the Yankees are the Yankees and the A's are the A's.
Blue Jays fan here,
okay.
Homebred Toronto fan.
Okay, so did you see that? I was watching that story this morning about the girl that got ripped by the 110-mile-an-hour fastball. They did the baseball card about her.
Yeah,
I figure somebody who gets smoked should at least get a baseball card.
Yeah, right. It was awesome. But no, I completely agree with you, brother. What's kind of some of talk to me as, somebody that you is listening, like myself, completely ignorant. How deep are we drilling? How through this pay stand? A couple thousand feet?
6,000 feet. Now, I've drilled wells down to, I think the largest one at 18,000 foot measured depth. But no, we specialize in anything about it. From 8,000 to the surface is what we look for. Now, once again, we can drill deeper. I've done them before. It's just there. When you cross that 9,000 foot mark, the cost of the wells gets much more significant. And
bigger equipment.
Yeah. Bigger rigs. And I mean, it's more in. So therefore, if you're using bigger equipment, the costs go through the roof. I mean, it's just, and it's not something we specialize in. Now, what we would do if we got to that point where we were drilling that deep, we'd bring in somebody who specialized in those wells. And, you make sure, I want my center fielder playing center field. I don't want him. Yeah. I don't want to have to put him behind the plate and ask him to be a catcher.
Like, as you're speaking about Bruce, I mean, he sounds like such a key puzzle.
Oh, without a doubt.
Puzzle piece to this. I mean, you have oil and gas gurus all around him, but we need to know where to punch the hole. That's all we need. And if we didn't have, Bruce, 10 out of 12, I mean, that's ridiculous percentage wise.
No, 10 out of 11.
10 out of 11. Wow, my guy. That is just crazy. But no, I had no idea. I mean, deepest we're digging, putting lift stations in, we're talking 30, 35 feet. Now that's with traditional equipment, of course. Mm-hmm. That's not with drill rigs, etc. But no, it's so uncommon to me. Pump jacks. So another ignorant question here. So we're drilling a well. Do we just leave a pump jack there and that's producing that? Or are they?
Well, that's it. Going to the panex.us/learn, it shows you the whole process. But typically what you do You're drilling the well. You set your surface casing, set it through the water table, and then you drill the well. And you have an open hole. Well, when you get to the bottom, now you have drill pipe all the way on there is going down, because in that drill pipe, you have your mud in the middle. The mud goes down, goes through the drill head, circulates around, and comes back to the top. That's your cuttings. And so as you're drilling, that ground up rock is circulating around and going back to the surface. And so they know exactly how deep they are. Well, once they get down, they'll pull everything back out of the hole. So you now have hopefully a mud cake on your case, on your hole, where nothing can penetrate through that mud. It just kind of sits there. Then you run the tool down and you basically log it. Well, once you're done with the log, you determine whether you want to set pipe on it or not. Let's say you determine to set pipe. You have something you want to do. So now you'll go in and you'll set production casing all the way down to your total depth. 40 feet at a time. If it's 10,000 feet, you set it all 10,000. But you set casing in that hole all the way down. Once you set it in, then you come and you basically fill the whole center of that up with cement, and you plunge it down and you rotate it to the outside, and you're cementing your casing to the formation. And so you want a perfect bond on that. You don't want any cracks, no channels. You pump it and make sure that you have a good bond. At that point, now you come in and you're ready to produce. So you'll come in with a perforation gun. It's about like a baseball bat, and it has holes, and it's basically 12-gauge shotgun holes. And it basically, you drop it down to the depths, and you set it off, and it blows through your casing out into the formation. And then that oil comes back. Now, when you have natural pressure, it'll come back, and that formation will just push the oil to the top. The Blackstone number 5, the second well we drilled out here, that well does not have a pump jack on it. We haven't screened and gravel packed it. We basically did what I just said, and it's running 100 barrels a day for almost 3 years now. We haven't had to do a thing to it.
And it's just head force.
Yeah, and it's sitting on about 550 pounds of bottom hole pressure, and it's still doing it. Now, it's producing from a hole. Once it's in that casing, it gets to that casing and produces from a hole about that big. It comes out of a hole this small. That's how that pressure stays maintained and keeps pushing. And so the big gut is the big question an oil guy has to ask, how big do you want that hole to be? And so you adjust your choke. That's when you hear them say, we adjusted the choke on the well. That's what they're talking about. Adjusted the final hole that it comes out of. And so now let's say you don't have pressure on that well. At that point, you'll come in and you'll set a packer above and below it. You'll bring in a pump jack, a rod pump jack, and that artificially creates the pressure. It sucks it out. And every one of these wells, for the most part, will eventually get a pump jack on them. However, that's a cost, unless it needs it. We don't run through it until it needs it, and then we'll put it out there. Right now, we have the 10 wells we have in production. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them already have pump jacks on them. Sorry, my list is on my wall of the wells.
You're fine. You're fine. It's just so crazy to learn about, really. Okay, now we've brought it out of the ground. What are we doing with it now?
Goes to storage tank. Each well produces out to its own tank. You have, and it's metered where we know exactly how much each well produced. And once that tank fills up, we vacuum truck it, pull it out of that tank, move it to the main facility because we've already metered it. We know how much oil was in there. So we know how much those partnerships. Once we know how much, then we pull it out, put it in the main tank. When the main tank's full, they bring an 18-wheeler in, they pump the main tanks and take it off. And once it leaves our property, we're done with it.
And that's where I was trying to get to, is that's
where we're done with it. Once they pick it up and take it from us, then we typically get the revenue from them 30 to 60 days later.
Man, it seems so easy, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds very front-loaded just to get to that point of, hey, we've got oil, we feel comfortable, set the casing, and then hit that pump switch. Hopefully it's just coming shooting out there. But at the same time, it's still a chance up into that point.
Oh, right. Yeah. Heck, you can even get it going and sand down. I mean, there's a lot of a salt dome is a working man's field. That's when you have to have somebody. If one of these wells needs to have a screw loosened, you actually have to have somebody on location to go out there with the screwdriver and loosen it. And they're on these wells every day. It's not, a lot of your oil formations that are your typical formations that aren't salt domes. You hit the well, turn it on, and you never have to look back. It does it on its own until it's gone. well, not salt domes. We deal with the sand, and really the biggest reason we're able to succeed now where they weren't 30, 40 years ago is we know how to deal with the sand now. I'm not going to say it's not a pain in the butt, and I'm not going to say we don't, the first solution works every time, but typically we can deal with the sand and get the sand stopped. Whereas back in the day, they could.
Give us a brief rundown. I wrote that question down earlier. What are we doing with the sand? Are we filtering the sand?
Yeah, that's basically what you do. It's a screen and gravel pack. You come in, you shut the production in. You come in, you pull all your stuff out of the hole, and you clean the inside of the stuff. Your casing in, it's already cemented in, but you pull your production equipment out. You clean the hole out, you clean the perforations out where everything's ready to go, then you drop a screen in there. And so that screen is the first barrier to the sand. Well, the second thing is you come and you basically, when I say gravel pack, they're not much bigger than grains of sand. It's little bitty fine gravel that you drop down inside of this screen. And between the screen and the gravel pack, that will keep the sand at bay. And the oil will flow through and come on out and leave the sand behind.
So it's just super coarse sand, essentially.
Well, now yes. However, we had one group that we were using where we bought natural sand from them, and it was still clogging up on us. And so we got with another group that they had synthetic gravel they made that had no sharp edges on it. It was all rounded. And once we started using the rounded where there was nothing for anything to grab onto, that has solved all the issues we had.
Synthetic gravel. That sounds like a very unique business.
Hang on, give me 1 second.
Lovely. The guy. I go real quick while RJ's grabbing that. I hope you guys have really been enjoying this. Check us out on all your streaming platforms, and definitely go and take a look at panex.com/educate and learn some more about this. What you got there, brother?
That's the synthetic gravel.
Wow, you can't even hardly see it. That's insane. No, that's what I'm saying, but I'm like, it's crazy.
I mean, that's
wow.
But those are all round. There's no sharp edges on them.
And to the naked eye, we wouldn't hardly see it anyways, but that's so crazy that there was a Bruce, for instance, somewhere that thought this up.
That one was actually my brother. My brother found those guys.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's so cool. All right. One question before I move on. So we're going out to shoot some wells, and we're going to be out there for a 90-day time frame. Do we have somebody from you guys out there, or is that you guys just leave all field kind of ops and you guys are more of an overview section?
Oh, no, we have our own crew run the whole field. We operate the wells.
That's awesome.
Now, a lot of companies hire out the operations, but that's just that would be somebody else stepping on the deal. That'd be somebody else we'd have to pay. Well, we can do it.
And that's what I understood. So I wanted to make that point very clear before I move forward. You guys, not only do you know the history and been in the game a long time, you guys are still hands-on from handshake to service of well. And I wanted to drive that point home.
Yeah.
To kind of the last thing I want to bring up with you, man, I really appreciate all your time. This has been so enlightening, and audience, I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. Don't forget to smash a like or follow wherever you're listening right now. But the future of blue collar industries, brother, service, oil and gas, where you obviously have seen the history, and we've talked about how history repeats itself, right? But where do you see this new group of generation? I mean, you can group me in there too. I'm 32, but I mean, I'm talking the 18 to 23-year-olds that are hitting the block right now that are still going to be able to hit those frac sites for you guys. Like, where do you see this going, and what are you doing? The man that's in the office that has already seen this coming, what are you doing to avoid and, derail that to retain the people you've got, or learn new training programs to try and train these individuals?
When it comes to younger people in the field, that's more my brother. Now, what we'll typically do, like one of my kids, he's contemplating, he's got a decision to make, whether he wants to follow behind my side and get on the phone and jump into this arena, or he wants to work in the field. I have two sons. I know one of them already wants to be on the phone. One of them, he he might be better geared to being on the phone. This kid he's quick as can be.
He's got it.
But he's always been hands-on and outside. And so I'm thinking that being in an office might kill him. And so, but
it's different.
And so that's where we look at is I like taking somebody who's never done it before so we can teach them the right way to do it. When it comes to back in the day when I was recruiting salesmen, I didn't like getting salesmen from other companies because there's a reason they're still not with that company. Chances are they've learned bad habits that I'm going to have to break them of, when I would much rather get a kid straight out of college or doesn't even have college. Sales, it doesn't matter.
I know what you mean.
Sales is the great equalizer. You can either do it or you can't. Well, right. I like to get that young guy where I can teach them the proper way to do it, where we never have to worry about those issues, because my mindset was, if I can teach this guy where he can do it without me, then he never has to worry about a job again, whether it's with us or somebody else, he'll be fine. And so that's just kind of how I looked at when it came to training. I wanted to make sure, I wanted men. I didn't want guys that had to ask me everything to do. No, you should know what to do right here. This is, you're a professional. When it comes to the future of it, I really don't worry about it. I really don't.
Good.
For the pure fact, I don't know if you and I discussed when I was at CPAC here last year, and I was talking to this kid from PBS came up to me, and he said, "You're the oil guy, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah," and he was asking about who I wanted to win and all that stuff, and I had laid my full answer out, and then he said, "Well, what do you think about all these parents raising woke kids?" I said, "Good." He said, "What do you mean good?" I said, "Good, keep doing it." He said, why would you tell them to do that? I said, "They're doing nothing but making the world easier for my kids when they're in there."
That's right, sir.
I said, so that's what you're going to see happen. I mean, we might have lost a generation there. I'm worried about some of them. I mean, some of these kids out there protesting for the Palestinians. I mean, anybody who can be on the side of somebody who would rape and murder little girls, I don't want you on my side. I don't care what your justification for it is. That could have been my daughter. And so just the fact that you can know you're ignorant, you that's not even worth me talking to you. And however, for every one of those, I'd be willing to bet there's 10 just like my kid, or just like all 4 of my kids, that have been raised right. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying I've done everything right, but they know that nothing is free. They know you get what you pay for, and they know that unless you're the hardest worker out there, chances are you're not going to reach your goal.
Man, I'm trying to do the exact same. I've Colt and Sadie, they're 7'5", and I recently found out I'm going to be daddy for number 3.
Hey,
Christmas.
Dude, 3 changes it all. 3 changes.
Oh, of course he says that to me. Just drop the hammer on me.
1 was easy. 2 is just 1 more. But 3rd, that was the biggest change for me and my wife. Now, our 3rd could have been because it was the first girl.
Oh, okay.
But once 4 got there, 4 was just add another to the mix and we were good. But 3 was, now I needed a 3rd row.
No, and that's, I'm super excited. Couldn't be any more excited. I think my biggest point, and I've actually was on a News Nation interview, and this is one of the things I brought up. Man, in 1960, when all that stuff went down in the 60s, the nuclear family, when mama was at home, and I'm not being absolutely one way or the other on, I think women are super capable in roles and that men aren't, and men vice versa, and I think they both can be equals. Let's just get that out there in the open right now. But what I'm trying to establish is the nuclear family, when mama was at home and she had time to love on those kids and she had time to read that book and she took care, and the stigma about the blue collar man, we could come home. It didn't matter what we did. We could come home and we could be proud because we're bringing something and we're feeding our family, and we could be that provider. And I think the system and just systematically has stripped a lot of that away from our pride that we're allowed to have. You know what I mean? But since then, I think it's been, just a common fight of trying to keep the household steady and being the blue collar man. Those guys that are out there on those sites for 90 days, they got families at home. I got guys that we go out on the road, etc. And man, the future of it can be hard, but the success of it is unreal. real, and it always will outweigh 5, 10, 15 years worth of hard work if these guys will just pick the right industry.
Mm-hmm.
Try a couple of different industries like yourself. I thought,
well, find something you
of,
love doing.
Bingo.
That way it's not work.
That's right.
Now,
and I love that. Go ahead.
If you love doing it, it can't make you money, you're wasting your time.
That's right.
I'm not trying to bust your happy bubble, but I mean, I'm sorry. Me playing my guitar is not going to pay one bill.
Not for the foreseeable future.
And so find
maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe. But I look at my wife, and once again, it's gotten to the point where a lot of wives have to work to make ends meet. And you understand that. However, when my wife and I got together, my wife's smarter than I am. If my wife would have jumped in the business world, she's much more ruthless than I am. I mean, she's going to kill it. I mean, and I know that. However, when we married, I said, look, baby, if you want to work, I would love nothing more than for you to work. However, if you want to stay home and raise our kids, I will make sure that we are never without when it comes to money. And that was the deal. That was the deal we cut. She wanted to raise the kids and stay home and make sure they were raised properly. And I said I would provide financially. And that's the deal we cut. And so I don't see how that's offensive to people. I mean, my wife, I have 4 amazing kids that, man, if I had to raise them on my own, they'd be all kinds of messes.
My wife, and it's funny you bring this up. Me and Sarah kind of hit that impasse as well. She has been by my side. We've been married 10 years this year. We're 32. You don't really hear of that in the new age generation. Yeah. And so we've got this family, and we've raised, this family together, and we've built a house in this time, and we've built this business, etc. But she looked at me and she said, when number 2 came around, we tried awfully hard for number 1, years in the making there. So the next 2 just came about. But after first one, I was like, hey, well, what do you want to do? I want to do whatever you want to do. If you want to raise them babies, I want nothing more than you, the person that loves them the most, to raise them babies. And I will do everything I possibly can. Well, baby number 2 came around, and we're staying at home, and she's loving it. Well, then she's really seeing me struggle, in this new age of business. And she jumps in. Thank God for my wife. I would be absolutely nowhere. We always have, any great man has a good supporter standing next to him.
Behind every great man, you see a woman pushing him.
Oh, 100%. And and not only that, and grabbing us when we start freaking taking off too. When we start going down something, this is it. They grab us and ground you and go, hey, now, this is your lane. You know this better than anybody. You stay in this lane. That lane's cool. Not right now. Maybe in a year or 2, maybe 5 years. But Sarah is like by far the best business partner I could have, and now has been running this thing with me 8 years strong. We'll be 9 years old next month. So anything else you could possibly pass on, RJ, before we go, brother?
Well, I'll put a final point on that. And
please do.
You listen to the people talking birth rates, and we're down to 1.5, and replacement is 2.1, and you look at all these women and men that are making the decision to, no, I don't want to have kids, I don't want to bring people, and I honestly think they are cheating themselves of one of the greatest experiences a human can have. I mean, I remember the moment
from God ever.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the moment I held my son for the first time. I'm 25 years old. I'm a baby myself. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know whether to scratch my watch or wind my butt. I mean, and here I got this little guy in my arms, and that was the moment I realized, hey, Jay, it's no longer about you. Well, everything you wanted to do and every dream you had, every aspiration, you know what? That doesn't mean anything anymore. This little guy right here didn't choose to be here. I brought him here.
Yep.
And it's my job to take care of him. And you would think, and don't get me wrong, I love my wife more than anything in the world, but I didn't truly understand true love and unconditional love until I saw my kids.
Amen.
And then it's like, oh, now you're able to that's what it is. That's what this family unit is. And each kid is just as joyous. It brings I mean, my second oldest just turned 21 last week, or what's today? 24, 3 days ago. And so I had to be the dad who kid went out with his older brother for his 21st birthday, and they went to, y'all just let me know when you get home. Don't tell me what you're doing. Just let me know that you made it home and we're good. You know, and I've got a 17-year-old little girl, that I got a 15-year-old little girl that, I mean, they're just, man, there's a reason parents brag on their kids. There's a reason that, I mean, little Susie could be the ugliest kid on the planet, but you know what? She's mine, and by God, I love her.
That's right.
And it's just for people to willingly sacrifice that in their life for what? For what? I mean, I kind of look at, not that I'm an egomaniac, but I do have a pretty good ego. But when you're done, how do you leave your mark on this earth?
That's right. That legacy.
How are they going to look back at RJ Burr if I worked all these years and made all this money and did all that, but I didn't leave any mark behind me. They look at Donald Trump right now, and Donald Trump is leaving his mark. But do you know who his true mark is? It's those 5 kids he has.
That's right.
It's what they do. And I mean, honestly, the youngest one scares me. I mean, why is that
funny? Why is
that kid not on the basketball court? He's 6'7". Come on, Donald, get him out there dunking.
I was sitting here. I'm with you, brother. But I was sitting here just thinking he hasn't let him go out and do many podcasts or talk. And I want to say he was getting on a podcast, and they couldn't believe the intelligence of this young man. But the way
he comes from.
You bet.
The way he set President Trump aside.
A conversation.
How many languages can his wife speak?
It's insane.
Look, she made it. She didn't have to marry Donald to be successful.
That's right.
She made it before him. She made it here. She did it the right way. I mean, she is. And the fact that they don't celebrate her, she's an immigrant's dream. That's who exactly you should be pattern yourself after. And yet they hammer him. I mean, that's really what gets me. I was talking about that Freedom Fest speech, and I was thinking about towards the end of it, so I'm kind of running an idea by you. But when you look at, it's easy to be negative and it's hard to be positive. When you look at our society today, that's what breaks my heart more than anything. You look at all the negativity out there and all the bashing of America, when in truth, man, there's so much good that we've done. We are good people. We do want the best for everybody. I mean, if some and I don't care if it's China, if some scientist in China came up with something that made the world better, by God, Absolutely. I'd celebrate it, because, dude, that's awesome. You came up with something nobody else did. When did we lose that? When did we lose celebrating excellence? I mean, because I love it. I mean, Tiger Woods, I'm a Jack Nicklaus guy. But by God, I watched every week because he was doing things I'd never seen.
That's right. Sunday in Red.
Wayne Gretzky. I wasn't a hockey fan. I love watching Wayne play because he did things nobody'd ever done.
That's right.
I'm a Troy Aikman guy. I had to admit, Tom Brady's the greatest that has ever lived by far. And so it's just, I love excellence. And we built a society that loves to topple heroes. Don't get me wrong, they love building them up, but they love taking them down even more. And that's where, like I said, I told you I'm a Rush baby, but that's where Rush hit the nail on the head with Trump. They can't tear him down because they didn't make him. If the media makes you, the media can take you down. Media didn't make him. He made himself. Those 30,000 people in the Bronx made him.
Yep.
You can't fake 100%. That. You can't, you can't fake. I watched him give a speech. And when I teach sales to guys, I said, look, I can teach a monkey to make a presentation. To get on the interstate, if you want to go from Bowling Green to I-65, from Bowling Green to Nashville, you get on I-65, just keep going south. Well, I can teach a monkey to do that. The genius in sales is what happens if you get off in Franklin. Can you get them back to I-65? What happens if they get off in Logan County and then go off to Russellville? Can you get them back to I-65 and still get them to Nashville? Well, most good salesmen can run one, maybe two branches off I-65 and bring it back. This man had literally 5 different branches running at once and brought them all back to I-65 in complete coherence that made perfect sense. And I'm sitting there watching that, and I'm not watching it from a political speech standpoint. I'm watching it from a sales standpoint. And, oh my God, that dude just made the greatest sales presentation I've ever seen, because all 5 points were relevant. All 5 points were being told at the same time, and all 5 points were brought home at one moment. And it was just, man, when did we lose the ability to celebrate intelligence? When did mediocrity? I listened to this guy on the news today talking about affirmative action without it's like, hang on, how insulting is that? I mean, how insulting is that? You only got the job because we had to give it to you? What happened to you got the job because you were the best guy or best girl? Same kid from PBS asked me, he said, what's your favorite color? He was talking about black and white, and he said, what's your favorite color? I said, my favorite color is green.
That's right.
I said, I don't care what color you are. I said, it doesn't matter to me whether you're black, white, purple, green, yellow, I don't care. If you're the one that's going to make me the most money, you're the one I'm going to hire. Oh, I said, man, most people are like that. The only reason race gets brought into it is because people like you that can't let it go.
That's
right. You
right.
go to any high school locker room. You go to any middle school locker room. There's no racial tension. The people that bring the racial tension are the adults that have a preconceived notion about it. You know, I'm walking through the mall the other day. My crew is me, my wife, and our 4 kids. And it was a couple years ago. I wasn't the other day. It was a couple years ago. And my 23-year-old was probably 20 at that point, 21. And we're walking through, and I go, Jaron. And I turn around, this big old black dude. Jaron. And Jaron turns around, and guy comes and gives him a big bear hug. I mean, they've known each other since they were in the 4th grade.
You bet.
They no more see the color on their skin than a man on the moon. It's like, really? Why would you try to cause a problem between these 2 brothers?
Yep.
You know, it doesn't make sense to me. And
in the South,
I choose to no longer participate.
Yep.
You know,
no, I agree with you.
I just choose to, you know, if 49 years has not shown people who I am, well, then you hadn't looked hard enough, and I'm not going to participate with your silliness.
No, 100%. And the future, 2024, everything we've just kind of mentioned is dark and grim, but man, there's so many, just like you said before, man, I'm buying when people are selling out, and, you know, I'm trying obviously different methods, and
there are ways. There are things you can do right now. And it's not all dark and gloomy. You go to those college campuses. You see those frat boys from Ole Miss stand up. You see the frat boys from LSU stand up. You see the parade in the Bronx. You see, and here's how I look at it. And this is what I really think the media missed. The media thinks that because all of them are on TV saying the same thing, that everybody's hearing them. Mm-hmm. No. They're telling each other the same stuff over and over and over again. Most of America doesn't pay attention to it. However, what does most of America do? They love their country. Might they have some disagreements with it? Might they be pissed off about it? Yeah, guess what? I can hit my brother. I can hit my sister. You hit them, you're going to have to fight me. And that's what they don't realize. They're now on our soil hitting us. And you have people that love the country, they're going to basically give you a 1-finger salute and say, let's roll. Because, look, we are good. And that's the biggest mistake anybody can make, is mistaking kindness for weakness. Just because I'm nice and just because I don't want to hurt your feelings doesn't mean I won't do it in a heartbeat when it's needed.
That's right.
And so, do I want to do it? No. Everything in my body hates doing it. I hate getting angry. I hate getting in arguments. I hate getting in fights. I don't like doing it. I have other things I want to do. I want to make money. I want to make my partners money. However,
that's right.
If you put me in the position where I have to, buddy, I'll cut your throat and bet which way you fall. And won't even think twice about it as I step over you to go to the next target. And so that's where I really think they're, and I'm not advocating any bond. But what they haven't had to deal with is the true Americans turn and face our intellect towards them. It's time to beat you now. No,
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, you don't get to sit there and make $250 million by insider trading and then chastise me. No, those days are over.
Agree.
You know,
I'm hoping to God.
Oh, you're going to
selection.
see it. Dude, you're going to see it. There's so many. Now, if they steal it again, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's the only concern.
I don't know what's going to happen. But I see a groundswell of people because I think there's so many people, and myself included. I mean, you grow up and you're so afraid to be called a racist. You're so afraid to be called whatever, homophobe.
That's right.
That, and so you don't publicly say anything. However, when you're at your house and you have your wife and kids, you're raising them a certain way because you know who cares about all this. This is what's real. Working hard, being honest, doing what you say you're going to do, be accountable to your word. If you're wrong, fix it. I mean, those are standard things that everybody should know. And to walk out there and have all your, now you have all these kids that have been raised behind shadows by guys like me and wives like my wife. Mm-hmm. Boy, you're okay. Stop crying. That's a skip knee, candy ass.
Yep.
Oh my God, you were rude to that kid. No, I'm showing them what's really worth crying for and what's not worth crying for.
We need more of it, man.
You know, if your arms bent that way, okay, give me some tears. I know that hurts. You know, but
yeah,
no, you don't have a concussion. You're fine.
Some really good closing statements, sir. And you wrap it all up here. I want to thank you seriously so much, and for your time and insight and learning about this whole industry, investment opportunities. There's so much here. And guys, as you guys can tell, this will be the first episode of the new studio. We've got a lot of things coming for you within the Blue Collar Business podcast, and look to check it out on all your streaming platforms and on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we'll catch you next time. Thank you, RJ.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Gary. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, share it with the fellers, check out our website to send us any questions and comments about your experience in the blue collar business. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you may have. Till next time, guys.